Life without Milan Momcilovic on the floor is kind of like life without BLTs. You can do it, it's just not the same. Today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to you for making this your first watch or listen and being here every single day. I appreciate it more than you know. Wherever you're watching or listening, be sure to subscribe so we can prove once and for all that it is, in fact, a Cyclone state, because today we have a lot to get into. Obviously, it's going to be a preview-heavy day with both the men and the women headed to Morgantown, so we'll talk about that in the second and third segments. But before we get that far, first off, we have to talk about life without Milan Momcilovic because it's going to be quite different. Before we can get that far, however, we do have to thank our friends over at FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, ladies and gentlemen, is Friday. You know what that means. Tomorrow is Saturday. Unless something changed and nobody let me know. That means that it's Friday, yes, but also Milan Momcilovic is still currently out indefinitely for the Cyclones, and this is a bit of a shock, okay? Now, I talked about Milan's impact on the game against Kansas, of course, but I kind of think in my, small, puny little brain that game is less affected by Milan being out than basically any other game the rest of the year. Okay, don't take my takes too seriously here. I know I'm wearing this ridiculous outfit, but I had to wear it today. I thought, hey, let's throw it on for the show. So I'm just saying that because I want you to remember what I'm saying here. It doesn't make it more credible because of this little dance. That being said, Milan Momcilovic averages about 24.8 minutes per game, and so that's a pretty big hole to fill. I mean, when you think about it, you can do one of two things. You can spread those 20, I'm going to call them 25 minutes between guys that are not currently playing, or you can take that load and put it onto the guys that are on the floor, or you can do a mixture of both. We saw against Kansas, Demarion Watson get a solid 10 minutes of that 24.8 minute load. They stuck with the 8-man rotation, and that's something that I am curious to see if things change moving forward. Do we move to a 9-man? Do we try to incorporate maybe Fish or Andrewsitis? I don't know what the answer is here, but we do have to account for those 25 minutes of gameplay that Momcilovic has brought to the floor. That's without talking about the points, rebound, assists, steals, blocks, all these other metrics, all these other things that Milan brings to the team, and even the intangibles. The fact of the matter is that 25 minutes need to be found, whether it's from players that are currently gaining, minutes in that 8-man rotation or players like Watson that are not in that rotation. Why do I bring that up? Because, believe it or not, the season is not over. Okay, like this is not, we're not at the final game here. We're 15-1 and first in the Big 12, of course, but we still have at West Virginia, UCF, Arizona State, Arizona, Kansas State, Kansas, TCU, UCF in Cincinnati, Colorado, Houston, Oklahoma State, Arizona, BYU, Kansas State. Sound like a rapper there. There's so many of these games left. That's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 games. 5-0 in conference play right now, tied with Houston and Arizona. 15 games remaining in this conference schedule. And if you add 10 minutes to one person per game of the 25 that Milan is no longer able to take in his load, 10 minutes for 15 games, that's 150 minutes. That's 2.5 hours of game time that is now added on to that player. If you give him 5, that cuts it in half, an hour and 15 minutes or whatever. Across the rest of the season, yes, but this is what I'm saying here is there's going to be an increased workload. So does Milan, if you take Milan out of one game, do we lose that game? My argument yesterday was kind of no, This team is so good they can beat you in any given way. They are very good at being good. They understand it. But if you take Milan out for 15 games, which he probably will be, we're hoping to get him back at the end of the season here, kind of as we get into postseason, but nothing is guaranteed right now. We don't know what his injury is, what his timetable is. We'll probably find out something next week, but it'll be pretty vague. And honestly, I want Milan to come back when he's fully healed up and can contribute to the team in the way that he was. And this team will find a way without Milan. You know, this is the tough part is, do we want Milan or not? Of course we want Milan, but we also want to succeed without him. We're going to have to find a way to make it work. So they will. When he comes back, if he's 60% of what he was when he was playing, how do you play that Milan? I just want Milan to come back and be a great ball player. That's all I want. That being said, that probably is going to come at the end of the year. So we're going to see an increased workload on every player now for the rest of the season. How does that play out? Honestly, I kind of think Iowa State picks up an extra loss. It won't be anything crazy. I do think this team is so tightly banded and so just deep in not only the players, because yes, they have studs everywhere. They got players left, right, center, top of the key, under the basket, you name it. But also in the ways they win, they are extremely deep there as well, right? So they can beat you with the three. They can beat you from the inside. They can beat you in transition with steals defensively. This shirt is very tight. Overall, this team is capable of getting wins. So I don't know if they drop too many more games due to this. But I also do wonder, what does the load look like when we get into the postseason? If, let's say hypothetically, we drop 2 games the rest of this conference, this regular season. Okay, that puts us at 18-2 in conference play. Still a very good record. I mean, I honestly don't know. I kind of think there's a way they go 20-0, especially if Milan is fine and we can spread that load out. But let's just say they go 18-2, very respectable. I don't know. As of right now, I'd say they lose at Kansas. That's always a tough game, and Houston is very good. And then they'll also play Arizona twice. So out of those 4 games, dropping 2, I don't think that's unreasonable. You're 18-2. I don't know where that lands you in the Big 12. Probably right around top 2 or 3 is my guess. But now, where do you go from there? Because yes, Milan comes back and he's got fresh legs, a hand situation, but let's assume he's fine. But now the rest of the team is still beat down from those 15 games where they saw an increased load. So my only concern at this time is not for the rest of the regular season. It isn't. I think this team's still very, very good. But for the hopes of a Final Four appearance or a national championship or bringing home another Big 12 title, my concerns are not so high that this is like, obviously the title of this is just life without Milan. We're just kind of addressing the situation here. I'm just laying out what's possible. But my concern is definitely higher than 0 when, last week, if you would have asked me, and even last night, I was so fired up because I hadn't quite had all day to think about it. Or I guess Wednesday night, because this is airing Friday. I hadn't quite had time to think about the long-lasting implications of a Milan missing situation, right? You take Milan out of any one game, and I'm not saying that Milan doesn't make a difference in these games, but we saw that you can beat Kansas by 17 points, number 9 ranked team in the nation. Yes, it's at home, but you can still get that win without a Milan. Do you get that win over Auburn? I don't know. We're not playing the super hypothetical game here. I'm just saying what I said last night. I still feel confident about this. This team can win without Milan on any given night. But over the course of the season, I need to see it. I actually don't know what's going to happen. How do they handle the load? I mean, just realistically, they're taking on more load, and their bodies are going to feel it. As mentally tough as this team is, they will feel it at some point. So that is my main concern. But like I said, this team is still unbelievably good. I am still extremely confident in their ability and Milan to come back and make a huge difference with his fresh legs in the postseason. I'm really not too concerned about it. But before we can get to the end of the season, before we can get to the postseason and cutting down the nets, we have to get to Morgantown coming up on the 18th. Iowa State will be headed to Morgantown to play at 4:00 p.m. against the Mountaineers. And boy, we are going to have to break this one down because trust me, this one's going to be epic. All right, so stick around. Coming up right after this is that breakdown. This message is brought to you by Prize Picks, the place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions in winnings. Prize Picks has changed the game in daily fantasy sports. Whether it's the playoffs or regular season, Prize Picks has made it easier than ever to win big while enjoying all the football action. Now it's playoff time, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with Prize Picks. Here's how it works. You simply pick more or less on at least two players, and if your picks hit, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Yes, that's right. 1,000 times your money just by making a few simple picks. For me, I'm all about the hot takes this season. This week on Prize Picks, I'm looking at Lamar Jackson for more than 250 passing yards and Travis Kelce for more than 70 receiving yards. It's fun to predict and easy to play. Plus, with Prize Picks Flex Play, you can still double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And with the app, you get your winnings fast, sometimes in as little as 15 minutes. Ready to run your game this football season? Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, $50 just for playing. Don't wait. Take your game to the next level with Prize Picks. Prize Picks, run your game. Iowa State, without Milan Momcilovic, as we've talked about in the first segment, will be taking on West Virginia this 18th. I believe that is Saturday. That'll be Saturday. Going to be a great game. Cannot wait. You're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And I took a look at this West Virginia team. I took a look specifically at their game against Houston. Obviously their latest game, but Houston, very good, similar, not in playing style so much. I mean, in ways, yes, but just in level of ability to play basketball to an Iowa State, one of the best teams in the conference right now. Obviously Arizona in that conversation as well. Give me 1 second here. So much talking. I need a glass of water up here with me. I took a look at their schedule, obviously, for the year. Lost to Pitt. They did beat a number 3 ranked Gonzaga and a number 24 ranked Arizona. But then after that, they beat Kansas as well by a point. That's actually impressive. I don't know how I didn't see that. That's sick. Then they lose to Arizona later, and then they beat Colorado and lose to Houston. So there are 4 losses: Pitt, Louisville, Arizona, and Houston. But they did beat Arizona when they were ranked 24, and the Colorado win there in Kansas. So a couple of notable wins, couple big losses as well. Now, taking a look at this team, obviously the point scorers are going to be kind of that main point we're going to look at. And first up with 19.4 points per game, which is a pretty reasonable number if you're asking me, Javon Small is going to turn some heads there, also averaging 5.1 rebounds and 5.2 assists. So very productive from the floor. 36% from the three-point line is great. And then down below that, you got DeVries at 14.9, Hansberry at 10, and then 9, 8, 5. Those guys, I mean, they're still obviously in there, but you're looking at those top 3 really being Small, DeVries, and Hansberry. And then rebounding wise, somewhere that I honestly think Iowa State did a really good job against Kansas, but still a point of contention. It's going to be Hansberry, Small, and DeVries there as well, with about 5.6, 5, and 5 average per game. Taking a look at their game against Houston, they do lose that game 54-70, and so I do think that the Iowa State Cyclones will have a chance here in this game. Realistically, I'm pretty confident. But there was just some dudes on West Virginia that kept them in this. Obviously, Small with 13 points and Hansberry off the bench with 16. Their 2 biggest contributors from a point standpoint. But overall, definitely kind of tone setters, if you will. Harris, number 10, is a starter, 7 points in this game. And this dude, the only way I can describe him is kind of like instigator, just from the what I've seen. I'm very curious to see how Iowa State handles him and what they kind of do, because I'm sure he'll be trying to get under their skin, rolling the ball back to Houston in this case, for them to inbound it, and kind of just in their face a little bit. Not too much, nothing too crazy, but certainly made his presence known. At the half, This was a 13-point game in Houston's favor, and West Virginia did get back in this. It was like a one possession game at one point, but then it gets back blown out of proportion. Wow. Back blown out of proportion to 54-70 for that final score. The last few minutes, there really wasn't much going on in this one. And to be completely honest, Houston, I mean, they're just really good at basketball. Namely, it's going to be, where is he? 5 of 10. Cryer from beyond the arc is kind of nutty. Sharp, I believe, started that game 3 for 3 from beyond the arc, and then went to 3 of 8 as a total. Yes, that was Sharp, I believe. 99% certain now. He started 3 of 3 and then missed his next 5, I guess. But either way, they were hot. Houston is a very good team. So it's hard to judge West Virginia against them alone, but I do feel like the Houston game is a good example of what the Mountaineers can kind of expect against an Iowa State. You know, this Iowa State team, yes, they don't have Milan, but still very scrappy, can shoot the ball well. And so what does Iowa State need to do to beat West Virginia? That's the next logical question. We've introduced the team. We've talked about a few of the players, and we've talked about their most recent matchup. So what does Iowa State need to do to win in Morgantown and extend that win streak and move to 6-0 in the conference? In my opinion, it is drive the hoop. It is drive, get to the inside, make a play on the bucket. They can shoot from outside, and I think West Virginia will let them to some extent. But it's just, I'm no defensive guru, but I just saw a lot of one-on-ones inside, and I think Jefferson and Jackson can make the most of that. And then obviously Chatfield. I mean, I wonder if maybe we see Chatfield kind of come out of nowhere, quote unquote, in this one and score 15 points. Wow, excuse me. This is a very big game opportunity, I suppose, for the inside guys. Okay, they're going to fly around and they're going to be in your face about it, and that's why I don't, love kind of that deeper, maybe mid-range 2 game against this West Virginia team. It feels to me like that's kind of where they like to hang out. So anything deep 3, it's just like a low percentage shot, as far as like risk to reward. Yes, Cujo, if you will, is literally making it from 90 feet, but that's neither here nor there. I'm just saying from every possession standpoint, I wouldn't probably be shooting it from as far as Cujo is. That's a situational type of situation, right? Instead, let's try to drive to the hoop more times than not. Okay. Defensively, I think that, they're sharp. West Virginia, very sharp on their offense now. I'm talking our defensive, Iowa State's defense. What are we looking at? Assist-wise, this team is solid. Very, averaging almost 14 assists per game, small with kind of that court vision. Now, for reference, obviously, Iowa State, let me pull up their average assists per game. It's going to be almost 17, but Iowa State ranked number 2, West Virginia not ranked right now. So, I mean, that's, you kind of have to factor that in. But still, 14 assists a game. They're sharp. They're good passers. They can get a little bit careless, but also Iowa State, I thought we got a little bit careless at times against Kansas. I didn't think that was our best game either. So every game is going to have its ups and downs. The question is, how does Iowa State beat West Virginia? In my opinion, it's driving to the hoop. Transition game is going to be a big one in this one against West Virginia. And then, of course, taking care of the ball, right? Because the less turnovers we are causing, we can control that. The less we're sprinting back on defense. And the more minutes we're playing that we're not sprinting back to cover a turnover. We're sprinting back to cover on defense every single drive. I understand that. Every single possession. Because we're a hard-nosed, absolute effort-based team. And I 100% love that sentiment. But the more times we can kind of dial it back and not do that more, I guess we don't have to do that more times than we have to. Let's just do that the normal amount of times so we don't incur a penalty, a double penalty, if you will, for having to take on Milan's minutes as well. Let's just play the game. Let's play it smart, get to the hoop, score points. Let's just do that. That should be easy peasy. Shouldn't be a problem. Also want to clarify, no diss to Milan. This is not Milan's fault. His hand is messed up. Just saying that we do inherently take those minutes and let's make the most of them because we're going to be dealing with them for the next 15 games or so. Let's just deal with them in a smart way. That being said, Iowa State men will not be the only team headed to face the 4th-ranked team in the Big 12 in Morgantown. The women will be doing the exact same thing. So we're going to break that down. You're not going to want to go anywhere. It'll be coming up right after this. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. That's $300 to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings. Whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs, FanDuel has you covered. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Iowa State men will be headed to Morgantown to take on the West Virginia Mountaineers, but they're not the only team headed to Morgantown to face the 4th ranked in Big 12 Mountaineers. No, the Iowa State women will be facing the exact same fate. Yes, you're probably thinking Iowa State 4th in the Big 12. How is that possible? It's a tie. It's a tie. Iowa State and West Virginia, both 4-2 in the conference after Iowa State claws back. And that's pretty amazing. Iowa State, like I said, I think better than their record. And here we can clearly see that. Now let's take a look into this West Virginia women's team. What is the case here and what exactly are we looking at? Well, first things first, wins and losses across the year. They're sitting at 14-3. Okay. They played, let's see, in the non-conference, they played Texas at ranked number 5. They lose that one 78-73. And outside of that, I'm not seeing any other ranked games. They do play Colorado and lose that one 65-60. Okay. Now remember, they have 3 losses. That's 2 of them now at this point. Texas and Colorado. And then they play 1, 2, 3 games, win them all, UCF, BYU, Texas Tech. And then they lose to Oklahoma State. And they're presented with an opportunity now with 3 losses to face Colorado yet again. And I think they might have remembered what happened in the first one. I seriously do. They win their last game. It's just happened against Colorado, 73-46. That's nearly a 30-point win for the Mountaineers. And to be honest, they looked very good in this game. They really did. I want to pull up their full team stats here. Got a couple names that I want you to know. First thing, as far as points goes, they kind of got 3 main scorers on this team. And it's going to be first, J.J. Quinterly. Absolute dog. Number 11 just seems to be everywhere and anywhere and everywhere on the court at all times. Next up, we got Jordan Harrison, number 10, dog. I mean, just an absolute player, currently averaging 14 points a game. And then at 12.9, so 13 points a game, it's Shaw, number 5. Now, Shaw is of notable concern due to her 39.4 3-point percentage. Very solid from beyond the arc, as is Harrison, of course, with 38.5%. But Shaw is very capable. Very, very capable. Steals-wise, they have 2 ladies that can steal the ball. It's Quinterly and Watson. Okay. Also, their rebounding leader, it is Miss Kaya Watson. Okay. So look out for her as well. But they're both kind of right in that same range. Rebounding, like I said, Kaya Watson. And then Quinterly comes in 3rd, right behind the one and only Jordan Thomas. Okay. So now we've got some of the names. What are we looking at here? I pulled up the loss to Oklahoma State and compared it to their dominance over Colorado. And what did I notice? Well, when you look at the Colorado game box score, they had every starter with 9 or more points, and only one had 9 points. So they were 1 point away from every starter having double digits. Shaw and Quinterly with 19 each. And then they had 6 points come off the bench, all from Sydney Woodley. Okay, then you look at the game against Oklahoma State, in which they lost by 7. Blackston had 16, and Quinterly had 10. And then they had 8 points come off the bench. That's 10 points come off the bench. Revere had 2, and then Thomas and Woodley each had 4. So clearly, they didn't get as much offensive production from their starters and had a little bit more help from their bench against Oklahoma State in a game they lost. Kind of similar-ish to Iowa State, sorta, in some ways. Kinda. In the fact that when West Virginia spreads the rock and all scores, they do well. That's kind of how basketball works. Now, Iowa State, what do they need to do to win this game? We know the players. We know their last few games. We know we've looked a little bit at some box scores here. Number 20 ranked West Virginia University taking on Cyclones at home. What does Iowa State need to do to win this game? To be completely honest, it's going to have to be an even-keeled game. Everyone's playing and everyone's scoring, I guess, performing about the same. It's what I've been saying for the last few weeks. Okay. The reason I say that, I do think West Virginia can fairly easily shut down Audi should they choose to. If they let her just score 40, then that's a different situation and a bridge we'll have to cross. But I do think the way they play their 2-3 zone defense, they can handle Audi. They can potentially do that. So we need to see more production from everybody else on the floor. It's that simple. I mean, obviously Addie Brown and Emily Ryan and obviously Crooks, but then Sydney Harris coming off the bench and Kelsey Jones is, I mean, she's not really, it's interesting with Kelsey because we've talked about how she's not really putting up the box score numbers, but Bill Fennelly likes the effort that he's seeing out of Jones. So he's keeping her in there. But obviously Harris, I'm looking to Harris, Ryan, Crooks, and Brown as our main four that just need to score quite a few points. That's how I'm looking at this game. Now I'll say this. West Virginia is, I wrote down, they're fast, they're intentional, and to be honest, they don't make that many mistakes. They are very solid. That's the best way I can describe this team. Now, they do make mistakes. They do. It was right before the half against Colorado, I believe. Airball to 3. Like as the clock is under 2 seconds to go. But what happens? Put back, boom. Buzzer. Free 2 points. Just because Colorado didn't box her out. So that's what I mean. They play the game in a way that they are constantly where they need to be. Okay? I mean, one play in particular came from, that's the wrong lineup. I believe it was Shaw or Jordan Thomas. I can't remember, but I remember watching it. She hits a 3 to beat the buzzer, and then instead of just running down the court senselessly and getting back on defense, reads what Colorado's doing, jumps the pass, grabs it, puts it up, didn't make it, but certainly was aware, right? So this West Virginia team, very intentional. They don't make a lot of mistakes, but there seem to be, because they're playing so intentionally and with such solidity, just constantly, they're where they need to be, and they can make mistakes that way. And so this team is very good. Iowa State's going to have to kind of bring their A game here. You don't have to bring your A1+++ game like you're playing the number one team in the nation by far. But I do think West Virginia is somehow arguably better than their record as well. That 20 over, like obviously rankings are kind of just like numbers, but they might be better than that. They are a very solid team. So do I think Iowa State sweeps this weekend? Do I? I'm going to say yeah. I'm going to say we upset West Virginia in this one. They're both playing West Virginia. I'm going to say the women get the upset in this one. The men will defend their number 2 ranking. It's going to take a lot for this Iowa State women to get that win. But, I mean, look at the games that they've been playing. The Arizona trip being what it was. And then, on top of that, the recent win, here it is, against, I want to say, it's not, yeah, Texas Tech. I wanted to say Utah. I had to double check because I knew we lost to Utah. For some reason, I was thinking that. Arizona State, Arizona, Texas Tech. Bing, bing, boom. Win, win, win. Yes, the Texas Tech win was ugly, but we got it done. We've got momentum right now. Take advantage of it. Noon game, West Virginia. Turn it on. It's going to be electric. Men play it. I think it's 4. The women play out on Sunday. Men play on Saturday. That being said, let's roll, Clones. take down West Virginia, both playing at the same time somehow. And until next time, Cyclone fans, sayonara.